Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming tonight to the 2024 series of Zoom face-to-face conversations with our neighbors. I've been thinking this year about all the kind of cool 20, 30-year-olds that are in the area and the ways that they've been making life work for them. And was hoping we'd talk to a few of them this year. There's so many more than can fit into a few weeks. But tonight, joining us is Molly Foye. And if you don't know Molly, you will after tonight. So I'm really happy that Molly's going to share what she's doing. Molly's been part of the library in a way that people might not know about. And so I'm going to just let us get started. Here's one of the cool 30-somethings in the town of Tamworth. Molly, go ahead. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks so much. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm so excited to be chatting with you. Let me just get this going. Bear with me. I do have notes on another screen, and so I might be looking to the side, and it's just for that reason. But I wanted to just introduce myself again. I'm Molly, and I've been living in Tamworth since May of 2022. So I wanted to name my face-to-face Thank You, Ella, how friendship sparked my interest in the Remick Museum and all things Tamworth. I think it's important to consider our past and how that influences where we are today. And I really couldn't start this conversation without thanking my buddy Ella. You could see a picture of Ella and I here in Wanna Lancet from last month. So I never would have known about Tamworth if it wasn't for Ella. I came up to visit Ella's parents, who were at one point part-time residents of Tamworth, but now they live here full-time. So back when I was at UNH in 2010, I met Ella at our first year of college. She would bring me up to Tamworth on little trips when she was visiting her sibling and her mom. And I just really fell in love with the area then. And it was actually Ella who first showed me the Remick Museum. So for those of you who don't know, I have a couple of different jobs in Tamworth at the moment. And one of them has been working at the Remick Museum in a role that I will describe in this presentation. So if it hadn't been for Ella, I would have never known about this really lovely town. So Ella first gave me a tour of the Remick Museum, including the Ed Center, which is where I currently live. This building used to be used for different summer camps, programs, and 4-H events. And so it's kind of come full circle that I've been able to host my friend to come and visit me in the place where she used to work. Kind of the magic of Tamworth, if you ask me. There's another reason why I really enjoy Tamworth, and it's kind of due to my very large family. So I'm not originally from Tamworth, as I've mentioned. I grew up in central New York, but I do come from a rather large family that's based in the Manchester and Auburn part of the state. So my cousin Kyle, who you can see carving a pumpkin over here, married Casey Heimlich. She is a Tamworth person. She's been here her whole life. And so they were married in 2013. And so my decision to accept the job at the Remick Museum a couple of years ago really allowed me to continue to spend time with some family members of mine. So it helps me feel extra connected to the area. It also helps that both Kyle and Casey really love livestock. And you can see Casey here with one of our Nubian goat kids that was born this past spring. So before Tamworth, I think it's important to kind of understand a little bit about my past to understand why I'm so excited to be here in Tamworth. I've always been someone that has been interested in human expression, whether that's through language or material culture or interaction. That led me to travel a good amount in my 20s. And before, I was an exchange student in Switzerland for a year, and I spent some time in Chile as well. I did graduate from UNH with a BA in anthropology and Spanish with a minor in race, culture, and power. And after I graduated, I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I kind of did some career shopping in the social work world, mostly through higher education student support roles. I've always been interested in fine arts, so I did try a position at a startup based in Newmarket called Art Bank. And then I was working in residential placement for adolescents for a while. That did get a little bit trickier during the pandemic, and that's when I decided that I wanted to tap back into my interest of material culture, and I wanted to help people in a different way, not so much in that direct care position. So I decided to go back and get a graduate degree in library and information science from Simmons University in Boston, which was awesome. I moved from New Hampshire to Salem, Massachusetts, just to be closer to school. I was able to take classes in person. And while I was living in Salem, I decided that it would be a great idea to work at a distillery there. It was really a great place for me to learn all about the beverage industry. I had had part-time jobs in restaurants and cafes all throughout my 20s, and it felt like a really wonderful opportunity to be able to connect by learning how to create products from scratch. So I was a production assistant, learning how to make gin, rum, vodka, Amaro, and then taking those products and then being able to serve them through my bartending shifts really made me feel connected to these products. And it was really just lovely to be around lots of environments of learning between school and the distillery. However, living in Massachusetts was very expensive, and I thought it would be nice for my professional direction to consider a new position in the library, archives, or museum environment, which I was so happy to see that the Remick Museum was hiring a seasonal, part-time summer position. So that is how I started at the Remick farm. I accepted this position and I spent a summer leading goat hikes with some of these lovely Nubian goat kids. I learned how to lead the medical history tours, which describe the narrative of the country doctor practice at our site that celebrates 99 consecutive years of country doctor practice between Dr. Edwin Remick and his son, that I'll refer to just as Doc, because they basically have the same name. So I've learned a lot about the Remicks. I've learned a lot about taking care of goats. And after my first summer here, I realized that I was not ready to leave yet. I did not want to move back to the North Shore. I didn't want to move to Boston. It was too expensive. And I saw that there was really a need here. I noticed that our lovely farm team, which is staffed of 2 full-time workers, they were hurting. They didn't really have the support they needed for weekend chores. And I noticed that we didn't have someone in the curator role, and there hasn't been someone in the curator role at Remick since 2019. And so I wanted to see what I could do to assist in kind of developing some more awareness about our collection and maybe drawing some attention to other aspects of the site. So I advocated for myself and I asked the different departments at Remick between the farm team and the program team if they would support my decision to stay in a hybrid role that I created to be a full-time farm and program assistant. They accepted that. And so in the fall of 2023, I was trained in how to milk cows and goats and to care for our beef cows, our miniature horse, Sadie, as well as the Nubian, I mentioned the Nubian goats in our dairy herd. So I was able to help contribute to kind of the farm chores that have been conducted on this site for over 200 years. So really it was a win-win. It made me feel a lot more connected with this site. It was also kind of an added little switch up. I was still in grad school last year full-time and working at the Remick Museum full-time. So in between my library and information science coursework, the focus on archives, it felt nice to be able to break up my time with some physical labor on the farm to kind of get my mind off of things and to really learn about running a dairy. Let me go back a few slides. So in addition to learning to care for the animals, last fall and winter, I really wanted to focus a bit more on drawing attention to our collection. And so over the course of a year, I, along with our lovely marketing and social media coordinator, Dawn Gilpatrick, we created over 70 posts to showcase items from the collection that typically are not kind of on our visitors' radar. So that meant I spent a lot of time in our storage space, which is kind of, it's a really wonderful place, but it's not heated. So it gets a little chilly in there in the winter. But it was a really great way for me to connect with some of the faces and narratives of the Remick Museum that are not part of the country doctor story that we tell. There are many people who have married into the Remick family, and their items are part of our collection as well. I also wanted to include the voices of some of the women that we don't hear much about when we think about the Remick Museum. Principally, that would be Marion Miles, who is the wife of museum founder Doc Remick, and Emily Alice Crafts, who is the mother of the museum founder, Doc Remick. So I wanted to share with you, after my time researching, my favorite item from the collection. You can also see, I'll go back here, that some of this research let me connect with our homeschool groups as well. So I was able to kind of design different classes to try to encourage young learners in caring a little bit more, or just creating awareness about history, archives, and museums, and how primary sources can aid in their kind of discovery of their own lives, their own histories. So by looking at objects from our collection, we also were able to have conversations about defining and understanding our own family histories through genealogy. And the Remick's collection is wonderful for that, because they also have a lot of comprehensive genealogical research that's been completed about them. So I'll advance to my favorite item from the collection. I really appreciated this item because I was able to collaborate on some of the preservation guidance for it with one of my professors from Simmons. So the item that we're looking at happens to be a 124-year-old slice of wedding cake. This piece of wedding cake was from Dr. Remick's marriage to Emily Alice Crafts in the year 1900. So this item is on display if you're able to take a medical history tour at the Remick Museum. It's in the dining room, which is where the tour concludes. If you just take a peek in one of the china cabinets, it's like a built-in feature with glass panels, you'll be able to see this scrumptious looking cake there. The couple was married on November 8th in the year 1900 in Boston. That's when Dr. Remick was 34 and his wife was 36 years old. This fruit cake, well, this cake we believe is a fruit cake. It would have been able to stay preserved by just sitting in this decorative box because the fruit cake was such a dense cake. It was made with lots of sugar and molasses and has naturally kind of collapsed on itself. And now it looks like this strange kind of rock. So the high fat content has created this resulting density. So it just kind of sits in the box and doesn't do too much. So the cool thing about this cake that created a larger connection to the history of Tamworth that I really appreciated is that affluent members of kind of Victorian era society. So this is toward the end of Victorian era. They were married in the year 1900, and we would define the Victorian era from 1837 until 1901 roughly. But other prosperous or affluent couples were also doing a similar practice of saving these pieces of wedding cake in these ornate boxes. And the intention was that they would save these pieces of cake to send to their relatives that were not able to be in attendance at the wedding. So if you lived far away from Boston, you could receive this little souvenir or a token from the wedding to remember the couple's special day. Another person who did this kind of wedding cake practice was Grover Cleveland. And as Tamworth people, we understand like the history and importance of Grover Cleveland in our town. And so I was really delighted to hear that he did the same thing. And you can poke around online and there's pictures of his wedding cake as well as his wedding topper. And I think that's really special. My professor I worked with had advised a student who was doing a preservation on the wedding cake topper as well as one of the decorative boxes of Grover Cleveland's cake. So I just thought that was neat as well. Let's see. So I would say that when it came to the collection side of Remick and the program side of Remick, my favorite part was doing my research for Molly at the museum. When it came time for farming, I would say that the best memories I had, other than learning how to take care of animals and stalling through learning how to drive the tractor, would be showing animals at the fair. Now, I was able to go to the fair this year and last year, and my first time at the fair, I showed a lamb and we came in dead last. But I don't really think it's about how many ribbons you win at the fair, even though you could see Andy, one of our Holsteins here, ended up winning Best in Show. it was just really such a fantastic experience to see how much work goes into preparing for the fair. You can see Kaylee and I are clipping cows, so we're shaving every part of their body, including their udders. We're painting their hooves. We're cleaning them with baby wipes. We're running animals all around with their show halters. And it just felt really wonderful to be a part of such a special kind of cultural event that we kind of get to experience here in New Hampshire. And it really helped me feel extra connected to the farm team as well. So those are some of my fondest memories from farming. And if we can go to the next slide, you could see those are the cows from last year. And then this is Francine, the Katahdin ewe lamb that I brought to the fair. And yes, we didn't do super well, but because she was so well socialized, we were able to walk around the fair together and use it as a way to educate people about the Katahdin breed, which a lot of people don't see a lot. A lot of people thought she was a goat, but because she doesn't have wool, she has hair. And then I was also able to chat with people about Remick. So because she was such a social little creature and so well adjusted, we ended up making the fair super fun, even if the judge wasn't really impressed with her. And you can see her lamb in that picture on the far right. That's her little lamb Cha-Cha, who was born in March of 2023. So Francine is really a really wonderful little sheep. She's a sheep now, not a lamb. So you should come on down to Remick and give her a pet. She's very social, so she'd probably come up to you. All right. So in addition to my hybrid role at the Remick farm and museum, I've also been working behind the scenes on a transcription and town records arrangement project at the library. So you might not have seen me there because a lot of the work I do is from home. But I started collaborating with Mary back in August of 2022 on this project. And with the help of the Tamworth Foundation, we've been funded to continue the project. So what's happened is that there are physical copies of our town records that exist in the town offices. And a third-party site or agency called CoFile took some of those physical volumes and they scanned them. So if we're thinking about the founding kind of notes that started all of Tamworth, those live physically in the town offices, but I have created a way for you to take a look at all of those records, and I'll walk you through that in a second. So basically, my role has been to take these digitized records that exist in TIFF and PDF files and to arrange them, describe them, and make them accessible to the public. That is typically the role of an archivist. So what that means is I just spend a lot of time on my computer. I break down larger files into smaller files, and then I upload them to user-friendly platforms to promote research and awareness just about the history of Tamworth. Something that I like to mention is that an archivist, so someone like me who studies, and I guess we study ways to make sure that historical items, typically records, are going to be accessible for the public and that they're well preserved. So we are trying to promote the longevity of ensuring that these materials are around for considerable time. It is different than a historian. So a historian is someone who would take the records with their kind of guided research questions and use the records in a way that promote their research. They're looking through, they're reading, they're kind of interpreting the records in a way that an archivist does not necessarily interpret. They make things accessible to other people. So that is the lens that I take with this town records project. That means I am not reading these volumes page for page. I do surveys of them kind of based off of what I've learned in school in order to get a sense of what's going on in each volume. And then I share that accordingly. But the role of the historian would come in and they would have their question that they're looking to research or answer and go through the records to find that. So that's just something that I like to describe up front. However, because I do have this background in kind of fascination with Remick, that doesn't stop me from like looking for the Remick name in the records. And so recently I did come across Doc or Edwin Kraft's Remick, the museum founder. I came across his birth record and I thought it was pretty fascinating that his dad signed off as the physician and likely attended that birth. I'm not going to assume that he did, but it's likely that he did. So I thought that was kind of a special discovery in the records there. And I'm going to switch over and give you a peek at the kind of exhibit space. So can everyone see this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you are curious about looking at the town records, I have most of them available. The volumes of records are up there. I still need to add some invoices and a few more vital records that are broken down, and they're not necessarily housed neatly into these volumes. But if you're curious about some of the standard volumes, I have them listed here in chronological order. Right now, there are 11 available. So we could take a peek at volume 2 in just a second. But if you're curious about this website, it's called Omeka, and it's a website that's developed for library and archives environments to kind of share digital archives with people. So it's really great for me, especially with the metadata that I create to help describe these records and to understand what exactly is going on with them. So this website you can access through Cook's website. It's part of our local history page. So if you're on our homepage and you want to learn more about us, you can go to the local history and then view digitized exhibits or records, and it'll lead you here to Omeka. So there's other digital records that you can find here, but for now we'll just focus on town records. So if you're curious about a certain era, that would be probably the best way to get started. And if you're really interested, and this is just piquing your curiosity, please send me an email after this or reach out to Mary, because we are actively looking for volunteers to help us, and I will explain why. So when it comes to these town records, they are broken down into smaller digestible chunks. But if you want to read anything about them and get a little background about what's going on, I've kind of described what's happening in them at the start of each. And then the town records will load accordingly. They can be a little bit slow depending on your internet connection, but each of these files is roughly 30 pages long. I'm hoping one will load just for the sake of our Zoom talk. And that way you can get a sense of the project that we're working on. But if they're not cooperating, then that's all right too. Essentially, when it comes to manuscripts or handwritten records, it's very difficult to search those. There's no way to search those, right? So if a record is handwritten and you are a researcher looking to find information about the dump, for instance, if you go and try to search in these records for the dump, no tags will come up because they're handwritten and they're not machine readable. So right now, our project, and we can see that these are loading, thankfully, a group of volunteers is working to transcribe these records to create the ability for researchers to then retrieve the information they'd like from these manuscripts. So if we scroll, you can see that these are written in kind of, 19th century cursive, and it's going to be important to transcribe them. So if you're someone who likes kind of the mystery of reading a stranger's handwriting, or you're really invested in the history of Tamworth, let us know, because we can assign you one of these digestible 30-page chunks for you to kind of start, transcribing, and you learn a lot along the way. These records aren't necessarily organized in the most consistent and predictable ways, and you learn a lot about the founding of Tamworth by seeing people's jobs, positions, attitudes, beliefs. They're represented all here. So kind of, if you're interested in a certain time period, I have them all described, and stay tuned because I work to add more and more. But this is not a comprehensive list of all of the records that exist to describe the development of Tamworth. Not all of them have been digitized from the start. So if there's something missing from here, it very well could be available in physical form at the town offices. So that's just something to keep in mind. It's back here. And then that really wraps up. If you want to check out other exhibits though from the Cook Memorial website here, feel free to check them out. But for me, that really wraps up kind of what I've been up to in Tamworth since I moved here, between 2 jobs at the Remick Museum and then working with at Cook Memorial Library, which has been awesome. I am still going to stay working with Remick part-time. However, I'm no longer going to be part of the program team. I've recently accepted and started a position at Tamworth Distilling, which has been a great way for me to kind of combine my interest in distilling with my current work as an archivist. The team there is really excited that I have a degree in archives, and they'd like some support in archiving not only some of their production materials, but also marketing materials. So I'm really excited about that opportunity and happy to stay living and working in Tamworth. So thank you so much. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask or send me an email.
Thanks, Molly. I wonder if you could not share your screen and we could come back just to our faces.
Sure. Yes,
Thank you so much.
Just a second.
Yep.
Just a million tabs open. Great, there I am. Okay.
Great. I bet you guys didn't know about this, right? This is such a cool part of Tamworth that we didn't know. Kathy, you want to share something?
I did not know anything. I only knew that Molly worked at the farm, so I'm amazed to hear about all her skills. Congratulations, Molly. Enjoy your new job.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Wyatt.
Hey, great job, Molly. Thank you so much for all that information. That was super fascinating. And I'd taken the tour with you a couple months ago at the farm, but really awesome to hear about everything you hadn't talked about and more of your background. I'm curious, just I want to see that cake next time I'm in Remick. Have there been any specific studies done on that, or that Remick farm has done, or is it just more speculation?
It's really just kind of speculation in comparison to other, I guess, other institutions who have done the research. But no, the only information I knew was just that there was like a little tiny printout that said wedding cake from like, and it had the date on it. So I had to kind of go from there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much for
the
presentation.
Wyatt will be our presenter next week. So thanks for seeing how it's done, Wyatt.
I've got to step up to the plate now and actually make a PowerPoint presentation to compete with Molly here.
It's not a competition, Wyatt.
I know it's not. It's cool because we're all, have such different stories.
We do.
And yet, I am also a dual major with Spanish and anthropology. I didn't know that you were both. I think I maybe did. Anyway.
Well, that's great. And we can see what direction you went with it too, right?
Mary, do you have, go ahead, Jim, go. Yeah.
This is Maureen Diamond. I just want to thank Molly very much. We've been watching your features on the Remick site, Molly at the Museum. Is that what they're called? Very neat.
Yeah.
We love that. Did a neat walk through there with grandchildren recently and loved the goats. So wonderful. Just, like welcome to Tamworth, Molly, and thank you very much for sticking it out. We are happy to have you. Take care.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have to say that it's been really great having someone with the archives background working with some of the library collections, but particularly with these digital ones that were that really need to be read and made available. So it's so good to see this project come forward with a lot of help. And definitely Molly's doing the brunt of the work, but the Tamworth Foundation and actually it was Moose Plate grants that helped pay for that digitization. So if you have a Moose Plate, yay you. So.
Thanks, Mary. Mary's been super helpful with the transcription project too. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, and something happened in January. We added like 4 or 5 volunteers since like last week. So I think the timing's right now, midwinter, and just something good to do. So we're really excited about having more volunteers.
Yeah, I agree. It's a fun winter hobby to just sit down and read some old records with a buddy and transcribe them for future research, right? And access. It's great.
Anyone else?
Hi, this is Dawn.
Hi, Dawn.
Hi, Molly. Well, obviously, we're very sad to have Molly leave Remick, but so happy that she's decided to stay in Tamworth. I just find she was a huge asset to the farm, and definitely will be to the distillery and also just to the town in general. I just was wondering too, just and it felt unusual when you came to the farm, and we just felt so lucky to have someone with your talents. Just how you're finding it in terms of your non-work life and young people in Tamworth, and if you're easily able to connect up with others that are around your age.
So yeah, I mean, I'm really happy to see that there's kind of my friend group is on here in the Zoom call. It's been, there's a small community of us, but you know, we do hang out. So we are connected, the 30 somethings and 20 somethings of Tamworth. It's also been really helpful, like having my like my cousin and his wife in town. So they've also been helpful for kind of social aspects of this. But I mean, it's nice to see like events like trivia happening. So, you know, we can head out to things like that. And yeah, there are opportunities for young people around here, which is great.
Can I ask a really geeky question?
Yeah.
I'm curious about the archiving of the digital materials, say what you're looking forward to most with Tamworth Distilling, because it's like this is new stuff that they're saving for the future, which is different than taking old stuff and making it digital and then sending it off into the future. These are born digital is what we call them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Things is that like, are you excited about doing that? Do you have a lot to learn about that sort of piece of archiving?
I do. It is exciting. It's also a little bit intimidating considering born digital materials. But the part that I like most about archives and coming up with a plan and a workflow is connecting with the people who are using those resources the most, right? And so I'm looking forward to building the relationship with my IT contact, who's going to be my best friend in developing that workflow. And then reaching out to the marketing team and understanding their frequency that they need to access archived materials. And I really look forward to having those conversations about how people like to or want to or anticipate their interactions with those items. And then developing the workflow is fun. It's just, it gets a little bit, the decision making comes down to who is responsible for moving the digital archives around. Will that be my role? I'm not sure. Would that make more sense for the marketing team to have a strict records management schedule that they adhere to? Maybe that's the approach, but I think archives, while there are certain methods and procedures that we follow, there's a lot of room for interpretation and like kind of creating unique plans for that. So I'm excited to see how that goes. It'll be great.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to figure things out as you go, I think.
Right.
Super. Have fun with it.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you so much. We're really grateful that you've spent time doing this with us.
Yeah, it was wonderful to be here. Thanks for having me.